Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hi dear friends. Welcome to the part 6 of neck region. Now in this lecture I will discuss the topic of the lymphatic or lymphoid system of the head and neck region. To have a smooth lecture, I will discuss this topic under these subtopics. The lymphatic or lymphoid system is actually a complementary system of the main blood circulatory system. The complementary means an additional or a parallel or an accessory system which works side by side with the main blood circulatory system. Before understanding this lymphatic system, we must have to understand the blood circulatory system. You know, the main blood circulatory system comprises a heart, a pumping machine. Then from the heart, the arteries, and from the arteries go arterioles and then capillaries. Arterioles and capillaries. These are the small terminal branches of the arteries at the cellular level in the tissues. Here, say the target tissue, the cells of the target tissues. These capillaries further divide into small branches and reach each and every cell, supplying nutrients, minerals, water, and oxygen to these cells. On return from these cells, small venules arise from these cells, and the blood goes back in the form of vein to the heart. These are called venules. It's called vein. You see here the arteries carry the blood which is rich with the nutrients, minerals, clean water, and the oxygen. But here, when these nutrients and oxygen and other minerals and vitamins are taken up by these cells, the blood goes back. That is empty blood. You can say it's a hungry blood. Here, the blood is deficient in the nutrients and the oxygen. So this blood, in other words, we can say it's a dirty blood. It goes back to the heart. This is a closed system through which the blood circulates in different parts of the body. Parallel to this system, there is another system of channels which arises, say, from here. Before this, I must say that these cells, you see, the tissues, they are not closely packed or closely fused with each other. Rather, there are spaces in between these cells, and these spaces are called intercellular spaces or interstitial spaces. This interstitial space is filled with fluid, with extracellular fluid. I must also tell that the fluid component of the body is in two forms. The one which lies inside the cell, that is called intracellular fluid, while the one which lies outside the cell, that is called extracellular fluid. The extracellular fluid has two parts. One, the major part circulates in the blood vessels, while a part of that is about 25 or 26% of the main circulation, that stays here in the interstitial fluid. Now come to this part. As I told before, that the main blood circulatory system circulates in these closed chambers, closed channels, while there is another parallel system that arises from this interstitial fluid. This interstitial fluid is like a pool of water in which the cells are swimming or bathing. This cleans the cells and the tissues from the different waste products of the cells, which for the cells, when there is a process, anabolism and catabolism are continuously taking place inside each cell, and as a result of this metabolism, different waste products are also produced that are released by the cells into this interstitial fluid. Similarly, when there are bacteria, viruses, and other invaders to the body, these are all killed by the cells and they are poured in this interstitial fluid. In this interstitial fluid, there are also chemicals, toxins of the different bacteria. And similarly, if this the division or the proliferation of the normal cells is, which is normally under a control system, but if this control system is disturbed, then there is uncontrolled proliferation or division of the cells. That is called a mutation in the system, and as a result of that mutation, the cells divide uncontrollably, and thus cancerous condition is formed, and the cells are shed also in this interstitial fluid. And therefore, this interstitial fluid is in fact not a clear fluid, rather it's contaminated with different other things like bacteria, dead cells, toxins, cancerous cells. So a system of blood channels that carries this fluid from the interstitial system, that is called actually the lymphatic system, the lymphatic vessel or channel. The part of the fluid that enters these channels on the interstitial fluid, that part of this interstitial fluid or liquid is called lymph. Clear? So this lymph is actually, the word lymph is derived from a Latin word lympha, which means clear fluid. But in my view, this word lymph or lympha is a misnomer for this, because this lymph is not a clear fluid, rather it's a turbid fluid. It's contaminated with different other substances which I told before, and also there are lymphocytes. The most important cell in this lymph is the lymphocyte. Mostly the lymphocytes run through these channels, and that are the defense cells of the body. So it's like a milky fluid. So this was the definition of the lymphatic and the blood circulation. Now, how this system develops? Development of the lymphatic or lymphoid system starts at the end of the 5th or just start of the 6th week of gestation. That is almost at the mid of the first trimester. This system develops as a parallel system to the general blood circulatory system. I draw it here the heart. In the previous lecture, in the blood supply of the neck, I showed the arterial system and the venous system. But now in this lecture, I would omit the arterial system. I will focus on the venous system of the neck, so that I can clearly show you how this lymphatic system develops, because it has a close relation with the veins. Here you see the superior vena cava. Here, the internal jugular vein. This lymphatic system actually arises as an outpouching from this venous system, and the first outpouching occurs in the form of a pair on both sides of the neck from the junction of internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein. Internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein. This internal jugular vein, this is superior vena cava. It divides on both sides, going into both sides. This is the developing internal jugular vein, runs towards the neck. From the junction of the subclavian vein and this internal jugular vein, outpouching occurs like this during development. Similarly, on the right side, from the junction of the internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein, this is subclavian vein. These pouches then grow along with the other vessels. Further outpouching occur from this pouch. One occurs above towards the head and neck area, and the remaining goes down in the form of a large duct. Similarly, on this side, outpouching occurs superiorly and the remaining goes down. These outpouching then increase in length and become ducts or blood channels that are called lymphatic ducts. On the left side, this is larger one, 40 centimeter longer up to the thoracic 12th vertebra. The right side, on the right side, the lymphatic duct is called the right lymphatic duct, while on the left side, this duct is called thoracic duct. Now come back to the neck. This was for the thorax, abdomen, lower limb, and the whole trunk, while the upper one is for the neck and head and face area. Now this pouching goes up alongside the vessels along the neck toward the face and the head on both sides. But in its way, like the veins, they also give further outpouching. These outpouching further branches then become different lymphatic channels, which supplies the whole upper part of the body, the head and neck area. Now, this is the lymphatic channel system, which lies alongside the jugular vein. Jugular veins. These lymphatics, as I told before, from the tissues of the head and neck area, bring the lymph back towards this area and joins the thoracic duct on the left side, while the lymphatic duct on the right lymphatic duct on the right side. So this was all about the development of the lymphatic system. I must also put one other topic in this, that is which must be here, but I put it here. It is the components of the lymphatic system. I put it here, but I will describe it a second to the development. The component, as I draw it here, let me draw it again for the components. This one, the 8th one. Components of the lymphatic system. This lymphatic system, as I described before, comprises lymphatic vessels or channels, initially smaller and then joined to make other channels to make a big one, that is called lymphatic duct. Number 2, from the lymphatics, there are lymphoid tissues or granules. When the lymphatic starts from the cell or the extracellular tissues, the extracellular fluid, it goes in the way that it is stopped by, or it is checked by a small nodule, a small granule of lymphoid tissue. These are called lymphoid granules or lymphoid tissues. They are present in the mucosa, all over the gastrointestinal tract as well as in the airway. You see in the mucosa there are small granules, lymphoid granules. After this, nodules, lymphoid nodules or nodes. After the small granules, there are larger nodes which further check this lymph. They are called lymph nodes. Fourth is the lymphatic duct, which is made by combining many lymphatic vessels and make a lymphatic duct. And all that is present in this channel, this system, is called lymph. Lymph travels through these channels and these spots. Organs and organs like spleen, thymus, and bone marrows. The cells of the lymph, that is the lymphocytes, are made by these structures. The nodules are these lymph nodes, also make these cells. One more important thing, as I told you, that the general blood circulatory system is a closed system and the lymphatic system is an open system. The other difference between the two is that in the closed blood circulatory system, there is a pumping heart behind that, in which the contraction of the heart pushes the blood into the arteries to reach to the periphery, and the relaxation of the heart receives or pulls the blood through the veins. While this system is not present in case of the lymphatic system. The lymphatics in the upper part comes through gravity, while in the lower part it makes problem because the only thing that is needed for its return is the muscle contractions. This means that the muscles, when are active, they are squeezed and the lymph goes towards the heart. So the exercises, the fluid intake, and the physical activities that enhance this circulation of the lymph through the lymphatic system. And one important thing I must mention that the Islamic worships, especially the 5 times prayer, has the postures which aids the movement of this lymph. And this movement of this lymph is important for cleaning the body from the waste products as well as from the cancerous cells and other bacteria and toxins. In some vertebrates, there is a heart for this that is called lymphatic heart, but in humans, the only thing needed for the movement of this lymph is the muscle contractions. For example, as I told before, these are the cells. This is interstitial fluid. The lymphatics, lymph channels, when take the lymph from this area and come to the surface, like from the deeper tissues, they come to the mucosa. Here there is connection of lymphoid tissues. This lymph passes through this granule which checks the lymph and kills or remove the waste from this lymph at its own capacity. Further, this passes through a larger nodule or node that is called lymph node. These lymph nodes, on one hand, clean the lymph from the different bacteria and toxins, but at the same time, these lymph nodes add fresh lymphocytes to the lymph so that on the way towards the target, it has cleared or killed all the pathogens and the waste products. From the lymph nodes, they go towards the venous system, the superior vena cava, as I mentioned before. So this is a structural representation of the components of the lymphatic system. So this was the last topic, but it was discussed at the 4th number. Now we will discuss the functions of this lymphatic system. There are many functions, but the more prominent functions are 3. The first is the defense mechanism, the defense function or the immune function of the lymphatic. It has lymphocytes and that kills the unwanted substances and the pathogens. So it defends the body from the pathogens and the different diseases. Second function is homeostasis of water level. Homeostasis of water level. As I told before, that it pulls the interstitial fluid from the interstitial spaces and takes it to the heart. So if there is excessive fluid, it carries from the interstitial fluids and goes to the heart, and from the heart it goes to the kidneys in the form of urine. So it maintains the level of water in the body. Third function is fats absorption from the gut. The left thoracic duct, as I told before, that carries the lymph from the intestines and other lower parts of the body, and the fats that is absorbed, that is carried by this lymph in the form of a chyle. So these are the main 3 functions of this lymphatic system. Now the clinical significance. The clinical significance, I wrote it here, but I must tell it at the end. The tissue level, I told you like this before, that there are cells with interstitial spaces, and the mechanism, what happens here, I told you in the previous topic. So it's clear. The levels of the lymph nodes, let me draw it now, the proper structures of the head and neck. Now let me draw the heart again. Let's say here, like a mango. People resemble it like an apple, but in fact it's like a mango. As I told before, from here, the superior vena cava, let me draw it also blue, the right side of the heart, just to show you that the right side of the heart has a deoxygenated blood, which usually looks blue. So this is the superior vena cava. The left internal jugular vein, the left subclavian vein. the right internal jugular vein and the right subclavian vein. These are the veins. Let me draw it up to the end. These are the veins, the internal jugular veins on both sides of the neck. Let me make it a little more human-like. Symmetry is always distorted. No problem, it will look like a human body. So this is chest, neck, the heart, the venous system. I omitted the arterial system, as I told you before, because my main concern is with the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system is related with the veins. Now, as I told you before, this area, the junction of the internal jugular vein with the subclavian on both sides, is actually the area where the lymph from the head, face and neck area come and joins the general blood circulatory system and enters the superior vena cava. So these may be made by different tributaries at different levels. Different tributaries join to make the lymphatic channels, and they become a big channel which runs alongside the jugular veins on both sides, like this. Let me make it also on the right side. So from both sides of the head and neck area, the lymph is collected by these small channels, which make a larger channel, and that runs down along with these, alongside the internal jugular veins. Now, and then pour into the left side into the thoracic duct at the junction of the internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein, left subclavian vein, while on the right side it joins the right duct at the junction of the right internal jugular and the right subclavian vein. So this was the lymphatic in the neck. Now come to the levels of lymph node. Levels of lymph nodes in the neck. You see, the lymph nodes in the neck are divided into two groups. Number one, classified lymph nodes, and number two, unclassified lymph nodes. The classified include internal Waldear's ring and external Waldear's ring. Now, the internal Waldear ring, if I draw it here, classified lymph nodes. One is the classified or the internal Waldear ring, like in the throat. You see, if I draw it like this, the oral cavity in throat, I may draw it like this. The open mouth. This is the upper jaw with teeth, hard palate, soft palate, uvula, tongue, lower teeth. Clear? Now let me draw it. I want to show you this internal Waldear's ring. Let me draw it red for the lymph nodes. This area is called tonsillar area. There is one anterior tonsillar pillar formed by the palatoglossus muscle and a posterior tonsillar pillar formed by the palatopharyngeus muscle. They make a gap between them, a fossa, and that fossa on both sides is filled with, they make a fossa which is filled with a lymphoid nodule or node that is called tonsil. This fossa is filled with tonsil, and this tonsil is named palatine tonsil. And these are the tonsils which we remove by tonsillectomy. So we remove these tonsils in tonsillectomy. Just posterior to that, this is an area of nasopharynx. When we retract this soft palate, the uvula, we will see an area that is called nasopharynx, and in this nasopharynx there are openings for the eustachian tube coming from the ear for ventilation. It's a ventilating tube of the ear, middle ear. Around the opening of this eustachian tube opening, there are also small granules of lymphoid tissue. These granules are called tubal tonsils. These are palatine tonsils, and the ones around the opening of the eustachian tube are called tubal tonsils. When we go a little midline, we see behind the nose, the posterior nares, there are other lymphoid collections of lymphoid tissues. These are called nasopharyngeal tonsils or adenoids. Adenoids. And when we do adenoidectomy for enlarged adenoids, these structures are removed from the back of the nose. Come down interiorly, there are small granules on the base of the tongue. These are called lingual tonsils. So all these lymphoid tissues or lymph nodes and lymphatic granules, they form a ring. If you see, this is a ring. And this ring is called internal Waldear's ring. Now come to the external Waldear's ring. This external Waldear ring is further divided into levels. Level 1 to level 7. Some people say 6, some say 7, but that 7 part is just behind the rib cage, this sternum. So sometimes they are not included in these levels. So the level 1 are the lymph nodes. Let me draw it here. If I also draw the face from the side, let me clean it. External Waldear nodes. If I draw the face from the side, it will look like this, roundabout. So the levels of lymph nodes. Level 1 nodes lie here. Let me draw it red. This area and this area. These are called level 1. If I draw it here, one area is this one, the other is this one. This area is level 1. The second area is level 2. The level 2, 3 and 4. Yes, one thing more I should mention, that there are around about 500 to 600 lymph nodes in the body, and almost half of the lymph nodes of the body are located in the neck. And about 80% of those lymph nodes in the neck are located alongside the jugular veins. And those 80% lymph nodes which are located alongside the jugular vein are classified into 3 groups. The first group lies here on the sides, is called level 2 or upper jugular. The level 1 has submental, this one below the chin, and submandibular. 2 types. Submental, submandibular. These are included into level 1. The level 2, the upper jugular. The level 3, the middle jugular, which lies alongside the middle part of the internal jugular vein. Middle jugular lymph nodes. The third part is the lower jugular, the level 4, lower jugular lymph nodes. 4. The fifth part, I must draw it here, it will be clear. I should also draw these like here. This is the internal jugular vein. Let me draw the sternocleidomastoid muscle so that we have a clear picture of the neck, the side of the neck. This is a sternocleidomastoid which divides the neck into anterior, anterolateral and posterolateral triangles. This is the internal jugular vein. The level 1, the level 1. The level 2 is the upper jugular. The level 3, middle jugular. Sorry, the level 2 and this is 3. The level 4, the lower jugular. Now the level 5 lies here in the posterior triangle, posterolateral triangle. As I mentioned before in the previous lecture, there is one muscle which divides this fossa into two compartments. The inferior belly of omohyoid arises from the scapula and runs towards the hyoid bone to a tendon, intermediate tendons. The nodes lie in this compartment is called level 5. And the level 6 come to the interior. Here, like before I told you that it's a hyoid bone, maybe thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, and trachea. The level 6 lies the paratracheal, sorry, there is one, paratracheal and the prelaryngeal nodes. Level 6. This is level 5, this is level 6 in front of the neck. Now the level 7th lies here, there's a sternum in front of the chest and they lie behind the sternum. So that is the level 7. Now these lymph nodes, they drain different areas of it. Like this submental area drains the midline of this chin, the floor, midline of the floor, the tip of the tongue, the upper lip and the nose. They drain to this submental lymph node. Now the submandibular drain the lateral side of the floor and the tongue and the mandible. And similarly, coming down the upper jugular, the lower jugular and the middle jugular, or the level 2, 3 and 4, they drain the oropharynx, the oral cavity, oropharynx, hypopharynx, and the other deep structures. This level 5, the upper one drains the nasopharynx. It drains the nasopharynx, a part of this, for example, this hard palate. Here the nares, this area above the soft palate is called the nasopharynx. It drains to this area. The node lying here in the posterior triangle, upper part, drains to this lymph node in the posterior triangle. While this node in the posterior triangle in the inferior part drains thyroid gland. So if a node is here in the lower part and posterior triangle, most probably there may be infection or cancer in the thyroid. But if you see a node in the superior part of the posterior triangle, the most probable diagnosis is pathology in the nasopharynx, it may be infection or malignancy. Similarly, the lymph node, if appears here or this area, they show the different parts of the hidden parts of the body which they drain. So the clinical significance, as I told you, the clinical significance of these lymph nodes is that they are the indicators of pathology in the areas which they drain. So from these lymph nodes, when they enlarge, normal size is roughly around 1 centimeter is acceptable. But if they enlarge and increasing are persistent, so we think that this lymph node has some pathology in its catchment area or draining area. There the patients come with the lymph node. Also on ultrasonogram, you see there's a lymph node, but there is no other pathology in the head and neck area. So this sort of lymph node is called occult node, and we do histopathology by a needle or by lymph node biopsy. Then and a malignancy comes in that lymph node. That sort of lymph node, there is no apparent pathology in the head and neck area, is called occult primary. Occult primary means the primary site of the disease is not clear. Our second major group of lymph nodes, that is the unclassified group, includes the retropharyngeal group of the lymph nodes, the preauricular, the postauricular, and the occipital nodes. So these are of not major significance. It's all about the lymphatic system and its components, its functions, and the clinical significance, its development. So I hope it will benefit the trainees as well as the other doctors dealing in this area. So I thank you all for watching this video.